The rain lashed against Emily's windshield as her car sputtered along the empty country road. The heater barely worked, and the frigid air seeped in through cracks in the doors. It wasn't unusual for Emily to be out this late. Working double shifts at the diner to keep the farm running was just her life now. Her father was too sick to work the land, and the fields that once fed their family were as empty as their bank account. But tonight was different. Something felt off. As she rounded a bend near the old mill, her headlights caught a small figure darting into the road. Emily slammed on the brakes, her car screeching to a halt inches away from the boy, who froze like a deer caught in the light. He was no older than 13, his face streaked with dirt and tears. His clothes were ripped, and he clutched his side as if in pain. Before Emily could react, 3 men emerged from the shadows, their faces twisted with malice. One of them held a knife, the blade gleaming under the faint moonlight. "Get away from him!" Emily shouted, her voice cracking with a mix of fear and anger. The boy's wide, terrified eyes met hers, and without thinking, she flung open the passenger door. "Get in!" she yelled. The boy hesitated for a split second, but the men were closing in fast. He dove into the car just as one of the bandits lunged forward. Emily hit the gas, her tires spinning on the wet road before the car shot forward. The men weren't giving up that easily. In her rearview mirror, Emily saw them scramble into a battered truck and start chasing them. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice trembling as she weaved through the narrow road. "Why are they after you?" The boy was shaking, his small frame huddled against the seat. I don't know. They just started chasing me. I think they wanted to rob me, but I didn't have anything. They said they'd teach me a lesson." Emily's grip on the wheel tightened. She knew the type, men who thought they could prey on the vulnerable. "Well, not tonight. Not on her watch. You're safe now," she said firmly, though her heart was pounding in her chest. The truck's headlights grew brighter as it gained on them. Emily cursed under her breath and took a sharp turn onto a dirt path she knew well. The car jolted violently, but she held her course. The truck followed, its engine roaring like a beast in the dark. "You're bleeding," Emily exclaimed as she noticed the dark stain spreading on the boy's shirt. "It's nothing," he murmured, his voice weak. "Just, please don't let them catch us." Emily swallowed hard, her mind racing. She couldn't drive forever, and her old car wasn't built for this kind of chase. Just as the truck loomed dangerously close, she spotted a row of abandoned grain silos up ahead. An idea sparked in her mind. "Hold on," she said, swerving off the path and into the tall grass. She killed the headlights and rolled to a silent stop behind one of the silos. The truck roared past them, its headlights disappearing into the darkness. Emily waited, her breath hitching, until the night was quiet again. The boy slumped back in his seat, his small chest rising and falling rapidly. "Thank you," he whispered. Before Emily could respond, another set of headlights appeared, but this time it wasn't the bandits. A sleek black car pulled up, and out stepped a man who looked like he didn't belong anywhere near these parts. His tailored suit and polished shoes were as out of place as a diamond in the dirt. "Oliver," the man called out, his voice laced with panic and relief. The boy's head shot up. "James!" James rushed to the car and opened the passenger door, pulling Oliver into his arms. His expression was a mix of fury and anguish as he inspected the boy's injuries. Then his sharp, piercing gaze turned to Emily. "You saved my brother," he said, his tone measured but intense. "What's your name?" "Emily," she said, unsure what to make of the man whose presence seemed to fill the entire space. "You risked your life for him," James said, his voice softening. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you." Emily shrugged, exhaustion catching up to her. "He's just a kid. I couldn't let them hurt him." James studied her, his eyes narrowing slightly as if he were trying to figure her out. Then he smiled, a rare, genuine smile that made him look almost human. "You've done more than you realize, Emily. And I promise you, this isn't the last time we'll meet." Emily had no idea what that meant, but as James helped Oliver into the back seat of his sleek car, she couldn't shake the feeling that her quiet, struggling life was about to change forever. The The black car's taillights faded into the distance, leaving Emily alone in the dark with her thoughts. Rain drizzled lightly now, soft against the quiet of the empty fields, but her mind raced. Who was this man, James, and why did he seem so powerful? He wasn't just any older brother. His polished demeanor, expensive car, and commanding presence screamed wealth and influence. Emily sighed, shaking off her curiosity. She still had to get home, patch up her leaky roof, and prepare for another grueling day of work. The life she lived didn't have room for mysteries, let alone wealthy strangers. She turned the ignition, and her old car sputtered to life, groaning as if it too was tired of the weight she carried. The next morning, the usual chaos of her life resumed. Emily worked the fields alone, pulling weeds and trying to salvage what little the soil could still offer. Her father's coughing fits came in bursts from the house, each one twisting her gut. The doctor's bills were piling up, the land taxes were overdue, and the bank had already sent their final notice. It was just another day in the life of someone who had been dealt a losing hand. She didn't expect a sleek black car to pull up the dirt driveway just before noon. Emily wiped the sweat from her brow with her sleeve, her heart sinking as James stepped out of the car, looking as immaculate as the night before. This time, however, he wasn't alone. A tall man in a crisp suit accompanied him, holding a leather briefcase. The scene was surreal. Two polished city men standing in front of her crumbling farmhouse. "I thought we'd never meet again," Emily said warily, walking up to them with her arms crossed. James smiled faintly. "I said we'd meet again, Emily. I keep my promises." "What's this about?" she asked, glancing suspiciously at the man with the briefcase. James's smile faded as his tone turned serious. "It's about Oliver. My brother hasn't stopped talking about how you saved him. He told me everything. How you risked your life to help him without even knowing who he was." "I told you it was nothing," Emily said, brushing off the praise. "He's just a kid. Anyone with a heart would have done the same." "Not anyone," James countered, his sharp eyes studying her. "You put yourself in danger for a stranger. That kind of courage is rare." Emily shifted uncomfortably under his gaze. "What do you want, James?" The man with the briefcase stepped forward, opening it to reveal a stack of documents. "Mr. Whitmore," he began, addressing James, "has instructed me to settle all your debts." Emily blinked, stunned. "Settle my debts?" James nodded. "Your mortgage, the medical bills, the land taxes, everything. Consider it a reward for saving Oliver." Emily's mouth fell open, but she quickly closed it, her pride flaring. "I didn't save your brother for money. I don't want charity." "It's not charity," James replied firmly. "It's gratitude. I have the means to help you, and you need the help. Refusing it out of pride won't change that." The words stung because they were true. Emily's father needed medicine. The farm needed repairs. And no matter how many double shifts she worked, she couldn't outrun the mounting debts. Still, the idea of accepting help from someone she barely knew felt foreign and uncomfortable. "I'll think about it," she said finally, her voice hesitant. James gave her a small nod. "Take your time. But Emily, this isn't just about you. Your father deserves a better life, and you shouldn't have to carry all of this alone." With that, he turned and got back into the car, leaving her standing in the driveway with a storm of emotions swirling inside her. Days passed, and Emily couldn't stop thinking about James's offer. The farm felt heavier than ever, the weight of every broken fence and empty cupboard a reminder of how much she needed help. Her father's condition worsened, his coughing fits lasting longer, and she found herself replaying James's words in her mind. Finally, she made her decision. She called the number James had left her, half expecting him not to answer. But he picked up on the first ring. "I'll accept your help," she said, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. "Good," James replied. "I'll handle everything." And Emily, this is just the beginning. True to his word, James settled every debt. Within days, the bank stopped calling, her father received top-notch medical care, and the farm began its slow transformation back into something livable. Emily found herself overwhelmed, not just by the relief of her burdens lifting, but by the growing presence of James in her life. He visited often, sometimes with Oliver, who was still recovering but cheerful and eager to help around the farm. James himself seemed drawn to the place, spending hours walking the land and asking Emily questions about her life. First, she thought it was pity, but as time went on, she realized it was something deeper. James wasn't just helping her. He was invested in her strength, her resilience, and the spark in her that had saved his brother. The lines between gratitude and affection blurred, and Emily found herself facing a new kind of challenge. She had spent her life fighting to survive, but now she had to decide if she was ready to let someone else in, to trust that James's intentions were real, and that maybe, just maybe, she was deserving of more than the hard, lonely life she'd always known. Emily's farm began to thrive again, though she couldn't quite believe it. Her father, now healthier with the medicine James had provided, often joked that their farm had been touched by a miracle. Emily, however, knew the real miracle wasn't the money. It was James. The once intimidating man had become a regular presence in her life. He wasn't just a benefactor. He was someone who genuinely cared. He asked about her dreams, her struggles, and even her happiest childhood memories. And as much as Emily tried to keep her guard up, she couldn't deny that she was drawn to him. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, James showed up unexpectedly. He was dressed casually this time, his sleeves rolled up and his usual polished demeanor replaced by something softer. "I thought I'd stop by," he said, holding up a basket of fresh produce he'd picked from the market. "Figured you could use a night off from cooking." Emily raised an eyebrow but couldn't suppress a smile. "I didn't think billionaires knew their way around a farmer's market. Let's just say I'm full of surprises," James replied with a grin. They spent the evening in the kitchen, laughing and chatting as they prepared a meal together. It was simple, roasted vegetables and freshly baked bread, but to Emily, it felt like the most luxurious dinner she'd ever had. As they sat down to eat, James grew uncharacteristically quiet. He looked at Emily, his expression unreadable, and then set his fork down. "I've been thinking about something," he began, his voice steady but tinged with vulnerability. Emily tilted her head, unsure of where he was going. "What's on your mind?" "When I first came here, it was to repay a debt. You saved my brother, and I felt obligated to help you. But now," he paused, running a hand through his hair. "Now it's not about obligation. It's about you." Emily's heart skipped a beat. "Emily, you're the strongest, most selfless person I've ever met," he continued. "You've been through so much, and yet you still find ways to help others. You're incredible, and I care about you more than I thought possible." Her breath caught in her throat. She had spent so long building walls around her heart, convinced that no one would ever look at her as more than a struggling farmer's daughter. But here was James, a man who could have anything in the world, choosing to be with her. "I don't know what to say," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Say you'll let me be part of your life," James said, his tone sincere. "Not just as someone who helps fix things, but as someone who stands by your side." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes, and for once, she didn't fight them. She nodded, a small smile breaking through her emotions. "Okay," she said, her voice trembling. "But don't expect me to go easy on you. This life isn't exactly glamorous." James chuckled, reaching across the table to take her hand. "I wouldn't want it any other way." Months later, the farm had become a symbol of transformation, not just for the land but for Emily herself. With James by her side and Oliver often visiting to help out, it felt like she finally had the family and support she had always dreamed of. One day, James surprised her with a gathering. The farmhouse was filled with laughter and warmth as neighbors, friends, and even some of James's colleagues joined to celebrate the farm's revival. Standing under the old oak tree that had been on the farm for generations, James turned to Emily and took her hands. "You've given so much to everyone else," he said, his voice steady and full of emotion. "It's time someone gave back to you." Before she could respond, he dropped to one knee, pulling out a small velvet box. Emily gasped, her hand flying to her mouth as James opened the box to reveal a simple yet stunning diamond ring. "Emily," he said, his voice breaking slightly, "will you marry me?" Tears streamed down her face as she nodded, her heart too full for words. The crowd erupted into cheers, and for the first time in her life, Emily felt like the universe had finally given her a break. She wasn't just the farmer's daughter anymore. She was someone who had fought, endured, and ultimately found the happiness she deserved. And as she looked into James's eyes, she knew this was only the beginning of the life she had always dreamed of. A life filled with love, hope, and the promise